And I think we're live. I think we're live. I think we're live. Welcome to the stream. It's Thursday, the 30th day of December. Almost New Year's, 2 days away. We're playing some Lord of the Rings online and got some special topics to talk to you about tonight. So, we're adventuring in Bree-land. We're still adventuring in Bree-land, same as the previous streams. You can check those out on YouTube if you'd like. As soon as my lovely mod, the Rose Garden, gets here, she usually is pretty good at linking up things for you to check out and follow and stuff. But anyway, we're on stream number 7. This is a Hobbit Burglar. This is a bird's eye view from this burglar of the Bree-land North Gate. So, welcome to the stream once again. And we've gone through the Shire. We've gone through Western Bree-land. We went into Buckland. We went into the Old Forest. Touched upon the Barrow Downs. Perhaps we'll get to more Barrow Downs tonight. We'll have to see. But one thing I'd like to talk to you about tonight, I'm pretty excited, is talking Moria. So, a little bit of background. My kinship and I was in a raid with my kinship, and we were able to complete a Tier 3 Balrog kill, I guess, in the Rift of Ner'zgashu. It's a level 50, 12-person instance. I believe it scales, so you can do it all the way up to cap level. But for us on Treebeard here, this is the Treebeard server. It's the legendary server. Our cap only goes up to 50. So what we see at 50 is what we get. We are 7 days away from Moria. It comes out next Wednesday, so today would be one of those days. It's almost over. So that kind of really got me in the mood to check out some information on Moria and maybe talk a little bit about the instances and what we're likely to find there. There are some rumors going around this server because of the excitement surrounding Moria, so maybe we'll touch upon those rumors and see if they'll come true. I've been passing my own information, having gone through this once before on the Anor server, but who knows? Maybe things will have changed, and Standing Stone Games will surprise us all. So, as you can see behind me, my map of Middle-earth has fallen. It kind of fell off the peg last night, so it's on the floor. You can kind of just see behind me just a little bit of it. So I put up some calendars just temporarily. The one on the right-hand side is the new one I just got, and on the left I just put Gimli there because I was feeling very dwarvish, very Moria-ish. So you'll see a little bit of Gimli. So without any further ado, we are adventuring with the Hobbit Burglar, Jubilus Narthropple, who's actually a gnome. If you know anything about the Pathfinder role-playing game, or I actually saw someone ask in World Chat today if anyone was a Pathfinder fan, and if they played the RPG, or if they played the Pathfinder Kingmaker game for PS5, and if they did, then what did everybody think? So I kind of sent them a wink from my burglar. My burglar's name is Mauricio. She's also a Pathfinder-inspired character. So burglars can't be elves, or elves can't be burglars in Lord of the Rings Online, so basically I made her as elvish-looking as possible. So that was kind of cool. So I sent them a wink. I hope they got it. So, what are we doing in Bree-land? Well, look at Bree-land. I gotta say, the Shire is charming. Bree has its charms as well. This is the old Thornley Works site. It's been, it went through a bit of a change. It appears slightly different than it did at launch, but still beautiful off in the night sky. I believe it's after midnight now in the game. Yep, we're into the late watches, so the time before dawn. So dawn should be here soon. A couple of windmills and barn houses off in the distance. Bree is very wild, but remnants of civilization. The Great North Road is still here. It runs all the way to the North Downs and Fornost, a former site of the Kingdom of Arnor, the North Kingdom, where Aragorn's ancestors ruled. And we are visiting this ranger. He lives at a nice little cabin here in the woods, and his name is Saradin. So we've got two things to talk to Saradin about. One is book 2 forward, so we're not really going to get into the next book. It's a little bit above our level right now, and it takes us into the Lone Lands, but we'll turn that in. It's the forward part anyway, so let's see what he has to say here.
How can I be of service?
Well, you can be of service by telling me what I need to know. So, Saradin must confess... Oh, yes, we're looking for Radagast the Brown. Where he was bound when he left here, other than eastward into the Lowlands. I do know that he was concerned with lightning, which he saw upon the peak of Weathertop. One of my kinsmen, Candaith, has already journeyed to Weathertop to investigate. Perhaps Radagast has joined him there. Okay. If you wish, my horse would bear you to the camp. We're not going there yet, but thanks for the offer. We'll probably take you up on that, so... I'm going to just kind of bury that right now. Level 22 quests. So we're level 19. A little bit... Progressing a little bit quickly, so I've nerfed the XP. And there we've got Sart Mandri of Rohan. He is a man guardian. He's just bellied on up to the bar here. Next to me, talking to Saradin. And this one is Saradin's call. So we got this note after we completed Adso's camp. It kind of arrived in the mail. And he said, Fernie is not done yet. So he says, it's good to finally meet you. Your efforts in these lands restores hope where it's needed the most. I only hope that we can lean upon you for more assistance. We must work diligently to undo the harm that has been wrought on these lands. I pray we're not too late. I pray too. I pray we're not too late to talk about Moria, which I'm pretty excited. I'm just getting these quests going, and while I'm doing them, we'll chat about the Moria instance and such. So, instances. So, first quest from him, my brethren's call. Your reputation precedes you. Well, I know. We're well aware of your efforts here in Bree-land and abroad. We, the Rangers of the North, thank you for all you've done. I wonder, though, are you willing to aid us even more? Are you willing to stand against foes that have long risen up against the men of Middle-earth, threatening to tear us out by our roots and make this world over in the grim visage of evil? Well, that's very, very serious stuff. I think you're willing and able. I think I am too. It's for this reason that I ask you to make your way north along the Greenway to the place where a pass cuts toward the hills. There in the ruins of the fort, you'll find one of my brethren, and that's Andrag. He'll give us a couple quests. And then he also says, go to Thornley's farm.
What can I do for you?
The Thornleys, farmers and workers of these lands for many generations, have been spared much danger from the brigands. Word has reached me, however, that this patriarch of the family has gone missing. A missing person. You can't hear. Are you sure? The mic is on. Everything's going. Okay. I didn't change anything, Rosegarden. Maybe you just turned yourself up. If anybody else is having trouble hearing, then just let me know. But I turned on the mic for mute, and it hasn't really hasn't changed anything. So okay, good. Let's see here. So those Thornleys, there's a missing person. We got to go and find them. Talk to Rose Thornley and ask about the well-being of her husband. Sure thing. All right. So this is going to take us, if you're wondering where we are in the map, I'll get to this house safely and then I'll show you. Perhaps it was just a rose garden. Oh, okay. All right, good stuff. Now, who's this fellow? Larunda, disciple of Claus, and Arteos. Okay, so we've got two people here, a Bjorning, and I guess they're both Bjornings. They're both disciples of Claus. Odd that they'd have that title and then roll a couple of other Bjornings level 18. Maybe they didn't like the first set. Maybe they just really like playing Bjornings. Anyway, Rose Thornley has to say, Rob has gone missing, but how do you know this? Are you one of those southerners looking to steal this place? No, I'm a gnome who's doing good. That's what I'm doing. You'll find that we're harder than the land that we live on. No, you're not. Sent by the Rangers, then. Never did trust them much. Well, who does? Skulking about in the cover of night, never talking proper like, but I must admit a feeling of gratitude lately, leastwise since Rob's gone missing. So we gotta go find him. I know where he is. Alright, so without any further ado, let's talk Moria. If you're just joining the stream, welcome to the stream. If you like what you're hearing, just hit the follow button. I can use all the follows I can get. It's free, and you'd be helping out the feed. So, for those who were here since the beginning, here we go. So, Moria starts on Wednesday. The last time we did this on Anor, I'm playing on the Treebeard server, by the way, so the limit is 50. It is the only server currently with the level cap at 50, but that's soon to rise to 60 with the Moria drop. So I've been reading a lot in the world chat of rumors of that, you know, when you go into Moria, there's going to be a queue. You're going to have to wait to get in. I will attest to that. I had to wait in a queue when Moria dropped on Anor. The queue went pretty quickly. I seem to remember being about 90 in the 90s in the queue. And, alright, here's Andrag. 1 second. And servant is man his word. Okay, so here's Andrag. And he's going to get us to kill some orcs. So, kill 3 kinds of orcs. I'm not going to read this quest because we're more concentrating on the chat than the quests here. But it's just kill 3 sets of orcs and collect strips of bloodstained cloth from the orcs. So I guess proof that they're hanging out here. So anyway, okay, so I did run into that queue, just to say. So the rumors may be true. Now, there's a trick in that, like, things, you know, things happen and people discover that they made mistakes. So maybe on this rollout, they'll actually fix that and we won't have a queue. Maybe they'll install, because contrary to popular belief, the Walls of Moria instance is not dynamic layered. It was not dynamic layered, I guess, when it launched on Anor. Dynamic layers in Lotro are kind of something that came about when the game went free to play, and if enough people are on one layer of the map, they actually generate another layer specifically for overflow. So, for example, if there's too many people in Bree and you're the 51st person, they'll start a new layer with you, and if you're in a fellowship, the members of your fellowship, etc. So there were no dynamic layers. I can promise you that when Moria dropped on Anor. So we had to wait. Just here, combat. That was one thing. The other issue is on day 1, there is a very clear difference between DPS classes, especially hunters and wardens, and the rest of us. I was playing a burglar, and there are certain areas. There's one right almost as soon as you enter the hub called the Dolven View, which is in the Great Delving when you first get into Moria. In that hub, I'm just gonna gamble and roll my dice here. In that hub, there's a quest that sends you into the, or before you get there, I think just before you get there, you have to go into a goblin camp, and there's 10 goblin types that you have to kill, and everybody's trying to get those goblin types. So the hunters basically just stand there, and the minute something pops up, they're pew pew pew, and they do not care, in my experience, about you. They do not care about non-hunters and just hitting them once to hit the mob and then sharing, letting other people hit the mob. No, they want to pew pew pew, kill it as fast as they can, move on to the next. So that happened. So what that did was it kind of spaced things out for those of us who were, I guess, just killing mobs normally and willing to kind of put in the time to to wait around for those respawns. To progress further. So a few strategies around this. One is the early levels of Moria. There are a lot of quests. You can go to any one of 3 hubs. You're really not going to be that far below level. You can go to the Great Delving hub, which is the Dolven View. You can go to the North Passage, Durin's Way, Western Durin's Way. That is another area in Moria. And then there's the Silvertine Lodes, which is the area south of the Dolven View. So you can choose any one of those to go to, and you can kind of start your adventure there. What I'm really curious about, and I know there's folks out there that can tell me, is what happens with the legendary weapons, because the trick to Moria before is that you had to go into an area just in between Eregion and Moria. It's called the Moria Gate, and you'd start a series of quests to get your legendary weapons. So I'm not really sure what happens when that, because they changed legendary weapons now. You kind of I think you may get the same weapons. Logically, they would give you your first weapon, so that mechanic should be the same. But before, I've heard tell that before you used to have to level your weapon 10 times in order to in order to advance that quest. Now, because your weapon actually levels when you do, according to the description, so I don't think you need that requirement anymore. I think the minute that you get your weapon, you can actually go ahead and progress the quest to get into Moria. So everybody's going to be competing for those mobs too. There's crows in there, and there's some mobs in there that the lizards you got to compete for. But it's really not that bad. In my experience, it's not that bad. There's plenty of mobs, and they generate plenty of things. So, all right, here's Rob Thornley. We'll save him. Oh, that must have been one of my last Bree-land adventure final. Okay, so we just completed a deed. So once you're in Moria, what do? Well, you level to 60. Easier kind of said than done, especially on these legendary servers where your XP is cut. But Moria is a big zone. There's 10 areas, 10 deeding areas, I guess, in Moria. You've got the Durin's Ways up top, along with the Fanged Pit. That's another area. Then in the middle, you've got the Great Delving / Dolven View. Hey, just completed a deed there. Alright, Rob's safe, looks like. So, Dolven View, and then that moves on to the 21st Hall of fame in both movie and book. The 21st Hall is the central Moria hub. Everybody hangs out there, and you see all kinds of stuff in the 21st Hall. You see people jumping around and, slapping each other and just having fun. People are just excited to be there. And it is an area in the game where they have a crafting hall, auction hall, and vault all in the same kind of nook, which is something. It used to be even more amazing, but now as subscribers you actually get a tool that kind of eases that pain a little bit. You can have a portable vault, portable auction hall, and you can craft at your house. So, but for those of us who struggled back in the day to find that balance between running back and forth to the vault and to the auction hall and switching characters so that you could plant one in the auction hall, that was a real treat. So, once you then it actually leads to the second hall. I think it's the second or the first. I'm not sure what it's called. That it's an amazing view though. There's some really cool stuff to see. So, and then on the lower levels, you've got the water wheels or the water works. I think that's the area of the thing. Sometimes it's referred to, I think, as Nala Doom, but I'm not sure. And then you've got the Flaming Deeps and the Redhorn Lodes, which is another mining area. And finally, I think you've got the deep, the deep area. So I can't remember what that place is called, the last area. But anyway, that's a creepy place. It's like where, so if you watch the movies, you know the part where Gandalf's fighting the Balrog and he falls right from the mountain. You can lurk away, Rose Garden. Lurk to your heart's content. Anyway, where he falls, and eventually, if you watch part 2, he lands in you can see him coming out the ceiling with the Balrog, this flame, and then they fall into the wall. Well, that is the Dark Delvings area of Moria. It's pretty spooky down there, not gonna tell you, not gonna lie. But once you're done Moria, now here's another thing about Moria. Is there's little Easter eggs that I'm not really going to spoil. I mentioned in the last one of my favorite areas. There is a garden in there. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You can kind of, if you haven't played before and it's your first playthrough, you can find it and experience the wonder of that, on your own. But as you progress through Moria, an odd thing happens. It's kind of like going stir crazy in your house. Sometimes when you're like, I really just got to go outside. I got to go outside. I got to see the sun. I have to get some fresh air. That actually happens in the game as you're playing in Moria. It's so dark everywhere you go, except for the garden. And there's just, you're underground. There's a ceiling on everything. When you do finally, there's Starcad the Dwarf. He is a Stout Axe Guardian. Also doing the Android quests, I think. So I'm just going to turn these in real quick.
What do you need? How can I
Signs of a struggle. Alright, so we got the proof. We killed the orcs, and now dirty work. Orc slaying. Dirty Work, one of my favorite songs. So Dirty Work orc slaying the outs. More orc slayings, this time 16 orcs at the camp. So we'll go find that camp after. And ill-gotten gains is collect stolen supplies. So I believe you just have to kill enough orcs and you get the supplies from them. So that's another thing. Then we'll go turn in at Rose Thornley because we found Rob. Okay, so back to Moria. Once you come out of the east side. So you go in the west gate of Moria, where the Fellowship went in. You actually... there's a pretty cool little event in the intro where you actually get to see the Watcher in the water. The thing that attacked Frodo in the movies and the books. So that's, that's kind of a fun little lead-in. And you enter in through the same gate. And then you go through Moria, the whole kit and caboodle. Right, here's Rose Thornley.
You startled me.
Thank you for rescuing Rob. He's asked me also something more. Thornley's Revenge. Defeat the Red Reaver. He's a boss orc in that area, so we'll defeat him. So there are so many Easter eggs as you travel. But anyway, when you come out into western. It's called Nanduhirion, and there's a place there called the Mirror. It's the lake that apparently the fathers of Durin, or Durin the Deathless, when he was founding Moria, went out to the lake and he looked in the water, and there was 7 stars reflected from the sky that looked like they were actually in the water, like they were perfect reflections. So he called it the Mirror. I think the name is, I don't want to butcher it, Nelad Karam, I think, or Kelad Naram. I can't recall. I'll look it up and I'll find it. So, but anyway, so it's just a wonderful feeling to be back outside. You know, you've been trapped inside for all these areas, 9 of the 10 zones, and finally you get to leave. And it certainly is a breath of fresh air, and you can see Lothlorien in the distance. And Lothlorien quests are largely peaceful. There's some areas on the outskirts where you got to clean up some orc filth and stuff, but for the most part, it's a kind of a gentle zone. So, all right, so we're gonna pause right now for a riddle. It's that time. Welcome to the stream for those of you who just joined. Hit the follow button if you like what you're hearing. We're talking Moria and we're doing quests in Bree-land. So every stream I read a riddle, and this stream's riddle I'm pretty excited about. So without any further ado, if you can guess the riddle, type your answer in the chat. I'll give you a round of applause and we'll move on. So the riddle is: when I appear, I seem mysterious, but when explained, I'm nothing serious. When I'm unknown to you, I'm something, but when I'm known to you, I'm nothing. What am I? And that's my challenge of the day. So talking Moria. So while you ponder that enigma, you can listen to more and more Moria chat. So what do you do when you're level 60, or what do you do when you're moving on in Moria? Well, Moria, one of the reasons that everybody's so excited about is we're getting instances. We're getting new instances. Yes, Swimmeroo. Good answer. That is the answer to this riddle. It is a riddle. So I'll buy you a Dairy Queen Blizzard. A little inside joke. Swimmeroo is very familiar with Dairy Queen. I believe he is. He works there. So anyway, so. Let's see here. And there's Basella. Welcome to the stream, Basella. So, at level 54, you can open up your first of the new Moria instances, and there are several. The first instance that you can open up in Moria is a 6-person instance, and it is called the Forgotten Treasury, I believe. Forgotten Treasury? I want to say it is. It's kind of a... It was often disregarded when Moria first came out, I'm not going to lie. And there's a reason for that. That reason no longer exists, so... Well, actually, I think it does, but it's not nearly as big a deal, so... because the game has changed. Now, the deal is you went in there, and there are these... It's a really cool mechanic. For those of you who haven't been in there... I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm just going to tell you kind of the first thing that you're going to run into. And that's when you walk in, you'll walk into the instance and make sure you're paying attention, and you look into the middle of the room, and you look at the ceiling, and you'll see that there are 6 light beams that form, I guess, like a hexagon, but they cross, and then there's another light. So you have to memorize kind of which beam is the first to turn off. They're all lit up, and then one disappears at a time. And then you have to go to corresponding statues and actually turn the statues until you can find the combination that matches the lights changing. I'm not sure. I don't believe the lights actually change every single time. I think it is the same pattern. But, I haven't run that one very often, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But that's... it's a fun instance. There's a cool boss mechanic in that there's a pair of bosses, and in order to beat them, you have to keep them separated. You can't let them come together, because then they just heal each other right back up to full health. So you kind of have to drag one off to the side, take them out behind the woodshed, and finish them off, and then go ahead and finish the second boss, who's hopefully across the room. So, and then there's a boss before that as well. It's kind of an ultimate boss, but that's a good encounter as well. So, just a fun instance. And at level 54, there are a couple of... Oh, I'm getting murdered here. All right. Oh no, that's gonna hurt. All right. So, there we go. All right. Time to eat a pie. It's pie time. Let's see, superior mushroom pies. It's pie and sausage time. Let's consume those sausages too. All right, so there's some pretty good loot. There's some pretty good loot at the end of that instance, and it's actually worth running. I believe some of the loot is actually... I think there's a champion and a burglar offhand sword in there that is actually extremely good. Can't recall the name of it. I don't really have the loot list for that instance yet. But why didn't people run the Forgotten Treasury before? Why was that a deal? Because it didn't... when Moria first launched, there were six-person instances that granted pieces of our no, they did 4 granted pieces of... No, they all did. I'm sorry. 6 granted pieces of armor. 4 of them were from a Moria set of armor, and what they had on it was they had a mechanic on them called Radiance. Okay, every armor piece had 10. So I believe if you had all 6, then you'd have 60 Radiance. And in order to achieve the big raid at the end of Moria, which was a 12-person raid, you had to have Radiance because the Watcher in the water generated so much dread. Or it might have even been called Gloom back then. Gloom versus Radiance. Anyway, so that was the mechanic. So you had to go into these 6 instances, get your armor, and then group up and go for the Watcher in the Water raid with your armor. Now, the final 2 pieces of the actual set, because you got... from certain instances, you got certain armor pieces. So from one instance, you'd get boots. The next instance, you get leggings. The next instance, you get chest piece. The next instance, you'd get gloves. And then in order to get the helmet and the shoulder pads, you would actually have to run... you would have to get non-set pieces just to get the Radiance. And then the Watcher in the Water dropped your final pieces. Only 2 pieces dropped per raid, so go figure. You have 12 people, you have 2 pieces dropping. You're gonna have to run the Watcher quite often. So in order to, if you wanted to get that set, so really cool mechanic. Now, the Forgotten Treasury was not one of those instances that gave you an armor piece. So a lot of people just skipped it because they thought, well, I'm not really getting anything out of here, so I'm just gonna, I'll move on. So I believe it's worthwhile running. I'm pretty excited to run it. You can run it at level 54 again, so it's kind of the first 6-man that you can actually run in Moria. You know what? I'm just going ballistic here. These orcs are gonna dread this name because I've done a little overkill. I think I was only supposed to kill 16. I think I've killed about 25 now. Anyway, on to the pie. No. So the next instance, I guess that you get to after the Forsaken Treasury, or the Forgotten Treasury, is called the Grand Stair. And the Grand Stair is the first of the real classic Moria instances. Everybody knows the stairs. Everybody's run the stairs. And I believe the Grand Stair used to give you... Oh, I want to say they gave you the boots. So everybody had to run the Grand Stair to get their Moria set boots. So you can run the Grand Stair at level 56. And another cool thing about the Grand Stair and all the Moria instances is that there's a challenge mode and a regular mode. Okay. Now the regular mode is also called the full clear mode, and Grand Stair's full clear is kind of infamous because there are so many quests from an area. You get about 16 quests just for that one instance. By far the most of any Moria instance. You could basically gain a level just by turning in Grand Stair quests. So those quests would start at level 56. That's the first level that you could get in. And you get your first Moria piece. So what was cool about the Grand Stair is it actually is a stair. There's a series of stairs, and on each landing, or in different sections of these areas, there are landings with bosses. So if you're doing a full clear, you're actually fighting about, I believe it's, there's a wolf boss, there's a flaming white boss, I believe, or a flaming orc boss. That's what he is. Then there's a boss and a troll, like an orc and a troll, and I believe and then that leaves the final boss. So I think there's 4 bosses in there, and if you're doing the full clear, you kill them all. So you do those, you get all your quests, you get some deeds done, etc. If you want, you can also basically just go on to the... oh, and then there is the first boss, too, that you have to reach in 10 minutes in order to trigger the challenge, if you want to go that way. So, very fun instance. The voice acting in the Grand Stair is what really got me. There's some really fun actors. The guy who plays the last boss has a really kind of gravelly, perfect voice for an orc. And he's got some pretty cool things that he says. There's also a goblin and a warg as a boss in there, and they've got some great lines like "Let the poison bite deeply" and stuff like that. And then there's a fire boss that's just like fire, burn you all, you know. And there's actually a cool mechanic for one, and I'll get into that here. I'm just going to turn these quests from Andrag. Cave. Okay. Locate the cave. And then we'll turn that one in. So we'll go talk to Rose Thornley. So, and then you had another boss who was... The mechanic of it was so neat back at the time, because it was very... Another thing about these instances is now you will notice when we go in there, it's a new trait tree. We're much more powerful than we were at level 56 back then. So it's a little bit of a face roll, but there is still some cool mechanics. And one boss is it's an Uruk with a pet troll. And in the olden days, having a minstrel or someone who could play the drums really made this instance, like that boss, very, very entertaining. Because what would happen is you'd have one person... basically, once you started the fight with the Uruk, he would try to wake up the troll, and the troll would wake up right away, unless someone was beating the drum. The troll was called the Beast, and the idea was to let the Beast sleep and just concentrate on that Uruk. So, so you'd get one person in the group who could play the drums, whether it was a minstrel or someone who he taught to play the drums, and they'd go on these big set of bongos, and they'd just be like dum 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 while everybody's beating down the orc. And finally, when the orc dies, the troll inevitably wakes up. If you take too long, the drummer's hands would get sore, and they'd get some kind of debuff. I remember that actually happening. It was called like shaky hands or something. So really neat. And then you'd beat up the troll, and the troll does this one move, and everybody has to kind of back away from them. So yeah, the drums are great. It's a really fun part of that instance. So Rose just wants us to choose an item here. Thanks for defeating that Red Reaver. So I guess last we're gonna locate this cave, and I'm actually gonna take the XP disabler on. I think it's about time that we can level a bit again. So that's the Grand Stair, and then Egosh. Egosh is a giant Uruk, and he is the boss of the thing, and he's got some mechanics to him too. So for every boss that is still alive when you face Egosh, so say you do the challenge mode, and you're just like, I'm skipping all these other bosses, I'm going right to Egosh. Egosh has the power of each of those other bosses. He gets a fire buff from the fire boss where he can plant flames. He gets a poison buff from the poison, let the poison bite deeply. He gets one of those from the poison guy. And he also gets he gets something from the troll, but I can't remember what it is. And then he has his own little sneaky Pete attack, so it's quite the battle. You have to constantly move to stay out of the flames, and he's tough. He's a tough boss. So once you finish the Grand Stair, that's stage 1. So that's one of the big 6 Moria instances. He is like Mega Man. Yes, very much so. Now, I should finish because that would have been an unfinished tale. Thanks, Swimmeroo. If you don't, or if you kill all the side bosses, like kill the Goblin Fellow, and I'm just lost here. Kill the Troll and the Keeper, and kill the Fire Boss. Egosh just basically has his own attacks, so he's much more simple to beat. It's just basically a tank and spank. He's got one big attack that he'll hit the whole party with, and usually flatten anyone with low morale. But other than that, it's a pretty easy fight. So that's the Grand Stair. The Grand Stair is in the Redhorn Lodes. That's about a level 56 area of adventure in Moria. Next, we're going to talk about the Flaming Deeps. Yes, Swimmeroo, the Flaming Deeps. So the Flaming Deeps has a couple of instances. Well, a trio, actually, but we're going to talk about the original 2 next. So as soon as we can locate this cave. So the next, no, we're talking drums. This, in next instance, is very, very cool. And I would actually recommend, if you can find a YouTube video where they kind of be quiet and you can hear the background music for it, to just listen, because the music in the next instance that I'm going to tell you about is actually really cool. It's got excellent ambience. It starts off with no music. You just start off, and this is called the Forges of Khazad-dûm. So most players just call it, you want to do forges, and that's, it's or you want to do a forges run, so that's it. An interesting note, I guess, before I'll prelude this, because I like to send shouts out. One of my old kins, the Mighty Band of Misfits, had a love-hate relationship with forges. One of my friends, a captain,
of a plot by Sharky's men to forge an alliance with the Orcs encroaching into the northern Bree fields, the Ranger Saradon sets into motion a plan to break the alliance before it can be established.
So here, we've got to kill 8 brigands and then the Tarkrip chieftain. Anyway, my friend Bermond, the captain from that kinship, he loved forges. It was, I believe, his favorite Moria instance. And for good reason. It's definitely one of mine. It might actually be my favorite, along with the Dark Delvings instance that we'll get into after. But my kin leader at the time, who actually played a minstrel named Mayax and also a guardian named Bruiser, his wife played with us too, and his wife played as our burglar, and she hated forges. She hated it with a passion. She did not like that instance at all. Once she got her piece of armor, she was out. No more forges run for the wife of the kin leader. So if you happen to be listening about that, then I'm sure you'll be nodding your head and chuckling about that. So I loved forges, great instance. So it starts out just as kind of you've got to clear both sides of an area, and then you move on to the actual main meat of the instance. So you start with a boss, and after you kill that boss, a timer starts. And I believe you have 15 minutes to finish the rest of the instance. So it is actually timed. You get you have to do it in a certain period of time. And back then, that time limit was a serious thing. Not everybody could do it. It was the challenge mode was to beat it in 15 minutes. So you'd beat the first boss, and then you'd hear the voice from the depths going, you have 15 minutes to get here, otherwise I'm leaving or whatever. Anyway, so then you'd start your descent, and you kept on going. You'd clear a first level, then you'd go to the next level. The next level had a pair of trolls and a goblin boss. So back then, what we used to do is we'd have the guardian, or the tank, the warden even, pull the trolls over into a corner and just kind of keep them occupied, while the rest of the fellowship met the goblin in the middle and just, tried to pound down the goblin as quick as you could, because the trolls healed each other. That was the other mechanic. So you couldn't kill the trolls back then. The DPS levels of Moria, when it first launched in, I believe, 2010, or it might have been 2009, the DPS levels were not what they are today. We could not DPS the trolls down before, fast enough, sort of thing. So anyway, you defeat that boss, and then you go down. And as you're going down, the drums would beat harder, and the music would get a little more intense. And then you get on to the next level and fight another boss, and then you'd get on to the next level and fight one more boss, and then you'd actually reach, I believe, the final boss, who is another orc. So Egosh was from the first. Who was the boss of the forges? Let me just consult my notes. Let's see here. Philgashin. It was Cranklook. Cranklook the Uruk. And he also had it was the same voice actor, actually, who played the Egosh in the Grand Stair. So you had two Uruks, sound kind of the same, but they'd say different things. And Cranklook was kind of a fun fight. He had different weapons back then. He could drain your power, much like a Lord Master could. He was also, you'd have to chip away at him, and then he'd run away. And when he'd run away, two trolls would come in and kind of keep you busy. You'd have to kill the trolls, and then he'd run back and rejoin the fight. So you had to rinse and repeat that a couple times in order to get him down. But what a great fight! Back in the day when the DPS wasn't so high, it was considered a pretty cool group if you could complete the instance before the time ran out, and get that extra chest. So that was Forges, kind of in a nutshell. But the music just gets more and more intense, and like I said, give that a YouTube search, and if you can find an old school run of Forges of Khazad-dûm, just listen to the music. That would be a good advice. So that takes us on to the next instance in the Flaming Deeps. Can't even take a drink. There's orcs all over. If you're joining us, we're talking Moria tonight. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're enjoying it. If you've been with part of it and you're kind of getting a kick out of my excitement level, I am really excited for Moria. It's coming to the Legendary servers next Wednesday, January 5th, and it should be a very exciting and busy time. So, hey, hello, Poteen O'Bowen. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a good time hearing about these old Moria tales and generating some excitement. Yeah, so we're gonna continue. Hope your night's going well. We're just kind of getting started here, so this is good. So next would be an instance called Philgashin. I'll put the emphasis on the Gashen. So Philgashin is an instance of orcs, lots of orcs. It's also got some of the most memorable bosses in Moria. So I am doing great. Just a little background. I mentioned at the beginning of the thing of the stream that I just came off a tier 3 Balrog win. So on the Legendary server, and Burglar is my favorite, actually. I used to be a Guardian main, but now I've kind of moved on to Burglar. I really enjoy the class. They did a revamp of the class just a few years back, and while they nerfed it again, they kind of nerfed our DPS. The Burglar is my favorite. It's just a lot of fun. And normally, I will admit that I do pay more attention to my burgling, and Blue Line Guardian, attaboy, yes, you can't go wrong with a Blue Line Guardian. Even way, if I don't know how far back you go, Potino Bowen, but I've been playing for a while, and yeah, it was I took pride in my keeping my fellowships alive. That's for sure. So now, as far as Burglar goes, I'm actually playing a Blue Line Burglar, and this is the first time I play a Blue Line Burglar. In Lord of the Rings Online, I'm traditionally a red and yellow burglar, red normally and then yellow in instances. So this is kind of neat. I've got these gambits, and you know, I'm just kind of learning what these gambles are. Not gambits, those are for wardens, but gambles. And I'm getting a kick out of all these dice at the bottom of my screen here. So just figuring out progressions. You know, it's just a touchy-feely thing, but yeah. So we're talking Moria tonight, just based on that excitement of the raid. My kinship is really excited to start tackling raids, so I'm going through the instances kind of one by one and just giving some memories and, you know, trip down memory lane and what I think people should look forward to. What I look forward to. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Are you a tabletop gamer? Because I tell you, the couple of folks in my stream, especially the Rose Garden, my mod, I've gotten them hooked. We're big Pathfinder gamers. I'm not sure if you played the Pathfinder game or if you're a D&D player, but my character is actually named after a Pathfinder Kingmaker character named Jubilos Narthropple. I refer to him as a gnome. So, oh, well, there you go. Wow. Welcome to the stream. So, very nice, very nice. And a lot of my characters on this server are Pathfinder inspired. So, my second favorite hobby, I guess, would be tabletop gaming, and mostly board gaming. Oh, okay. So, what type of board games are your favorites? And I'll tell you mine in a moment. And then we'll get back to Phil Gashin after I turn this on. Well, you know what? I'll just tell you mine now, and then maybe we'll have some in common. So, yes, I do like Settlers of Catan. It is kind of getting older and whatnot, and there's a lot of new and exciting games. But I'm a fan of that. I also like Eldritch Horror. That's a pretty cool mechanic, and it's pretty neat how it's a cooperative game. I'm really getting a kick out of these cooperative games that have come out lately, like Pandemic. Well, Pandemic's an older one, but I have Pandemic The Cure, which is a little bit of a faster paced one. Wingspan, on my Facebook cover page, I think Wingspan and a couple of glasses of wine are there. So Wingspan's a huge favorite in my house. Darkest Night and Coldwater Crown, though. Swimmeroo and Rose Garden, perhaps make a note, because and then Basilla, yes, Basilla is the queen of Wingspan. We played over 25 games, and I've won once, and I try. She is just that darn good. I don't know how she does it, but she's amazing. So
how can I be
she says it's because we play too aggressively. No, it's just her. She's just extremely lucky. So the next one is Word to the South. We're going to go talk to Sarah in his cabin here, and this will be the last of the Northern Brieffield. So yes, indeed, you guys play to win. I play to play. You win, though. You win every time, Basilla. So yeah, so make those notes on Darkest Night and Coldwater Crown, and yeah, that's exciting. I'm thrilled to have a fellow board gamer and tabletop gamer as well, so join the stream. So if you like what you're hearing, go ahead, hit the follow button. It's free. Welcome to the stream if you're new. And Elizabeth Hargraves is such a delight. I just saw they sold over 1 million copies. Wow, Elizabeth. All right. Oh, and Talisman. I forgot about Talisman. I also like Takinoko. That's another favorite game of mine with the panda. It's the Panda Garden game. So, yeah, some really cool games. The board game has come a long way. We also kind of play some classic games here. We've just kind of uncovered a box that was unpacked in a move. So we're playing old games like there's a game called Stop Thief that was released by Parker. I think it was Milton Bradley a long time ago. Pandemic got you into designing. That's awesome. That game, Swimmeroo does not really like Pandemic a lot. He says it's too nerve-wracking. So I just think he's not really into the cooperative games myself, but yeah, so alright, so we're turning into Ceradan here.
How can I be of service?
And Ceradan has a follow-up. We're not going to do it. We're going to head to the Barrow Downs now. I think that's a good logical place to finish this Bree-land tour and talk more Moria. So going to continue on with the Moria instances here. So Phil Gashin. Phil Gashin is the home of orcs. And you start off by basically the first boss in the game is a cook. Well, the orcs gotta eat, right? So the first major battle takes place in a kitchen. There are a lot of orcs in that kitchen. A lot of orcs. And back in the day, the trick was Phil Gashin's kind of neat because it's an investigation as well. You get to wear costumes, and if you walk in, you can go in disguised as an orc. That's a way to trigger the first boss fight without having to fight the whole room full of orcs. Is you get a uniform. I believe it's a soldier uniform first. And where am I here? Oh, I'm still up there. Okay, so you get a soldier uniform, and then you put it on, and you go into a room, and it's filled with orcs, and you just kind of don't dawdle near. Well, I'm really happy. Thank you for your follow. I really appreciate that, and yeah, it's really exciting to have a fellow gamer in the board gamer in the room. So, yeah. So yeah, so you go in and you kind of don't dawdle, but all the orcs eventually get up and they leave, and then the cook gets angry. He's like, "Where is everybody?" And then you fight Vraz the cook, and Vraz the cook has some fantastic voice acting lines. You know, "Would you like that pan seared?" is one of them, and "Have you tried the special?" There's another one, and he's just a hoot. He's got a lot of good voices and sayings, and not a very tough boss. He's kind of a tank and spank boss, you know, but a lot of fun to start the instance. And then you get a little further in, and there's a trio of bosses. There's a funny little story to go along with this too. There's a trio of bosses, and they actually, one of the things that makes Lord of the Rings a little bit different is you can do fellowship maneuvers in this game. You can actually burglars are our specialty is starting them with exploit opening, and you can throw marbles and you can trip. So to start these fellowship maneuvers, and then basically the whole group gets to perform a move and just pound whoever's victimized by these maneuvers, you know, into oblivion. Well, Phil Gashin turns the tables on you. These three Uruks perform fellowship maneuvers on you. They keep calling it the warband maneuver, like there's only one. Hey, Rose Garden, welcome back. I'd like to introduce you to Patine O'Bowen. He is a board gamer and a dice lover, so and he's our new follower, so welcome back to the stream. So anyway, these guys can perform fellowship maneuvers on you, and all you'll hear throughout the whole fight is, you know, prepare the warband maneuver, prepare the warband maneuver. And back then we weren't terribly effective the first time we went in there, so we fought that fight 2 or 3 times before we finally got it down. And our guardian woke up the next day and said, you know, I was falling asleep and I kept hearing, you know, prepare the warband maneuver in my head all night long. It just wouldn't let me up. So that's some Phil Gashin fun there. And finally, the last of the bosses is General Talag. And General Talag is a giant Uruk, and he starts off in huge armor. He actually moves really slow, and that's a mechanic that you kind of have to start. You have to drag him into, he's got an Uruk that sets traps, or an orc that sets traps around the room trying to catch you. Well, you have to kite General Talag into those traps. And when you do, he falls, and then everybody can DPS him down. And finally, he just says, this armor's too heavy. We have to get rid of him, and you know, like, or we have to get rid of it. Then he takes his armor off, and then he's much easier to kill. So, but some good lines in there. The trap guy says, you know, mind your feet, and if you don't move, you'll burn. You know, he's got some good voice line sayings there. So, Phil Gashin's definitely entertaining. Yeah, you know, a lot of folks play with they play with volume on, and I would have to say that that would be a good instance to take the volume off and just go ahead and listen to the game sounds. So we're in the Barrow Downs. We're just going in here, and we're talking Moria tonight. So let's see what happens here. The failed delivery. So the body is cold to the touch, but the wounds appear fresh, though the lack of blood surrounding the man's body is disturbing. In his hand, the man clutches a note. His position and a trail of disturbed earth makes it appear that he traveled through the gloom of the Barrow Downs to reach this point. The note is chewed and crumpled, and the only legible words are, "Between the old forest and the northern Barrow Downs. Send help." Okay, so that's where we're off to. So you get another armor piece from General Talog, and then you also got one from Forges. I believe the chest plate came from Forges, and I believe the leggings came from Filgashen. That's what I'd like to say. So next we'll talk about quite possibly the least looked forward to instance in Moria, simply because of how disgusting it is. But so here are the Barrow Downs. We've been in here before just a little bit. There's a barrow, and you can see it's foggy. There's a chapter in Lord of the Rings entitled "Fog on the Barrow Downs," and I was just actually reading that last night in my annual reread of the Lord of the Rings, where the hobbits get trapped in the barrow. A sword does indeed get left across the necks of Sam, Merry, and Pippin. It's quite terrifying, and Frodo's kind of left with the decision: should I just leave them, or should I try to save them? And of course, he tries to save them, and then Tom Bombadil saves the day. So that's a good chapter in the story, and that's where I'm at right now. So, but I'd like to keep talking about Moria here. This is kind of a cool stream subject here. The next instance is, and keeping in mind the levels, sorry. So the first instance was level 54, and that was the Forgotten Treasury. The next instance, level 56, was the Grand Stair. And finally, you had level 58, you had Forges. All the other instances, including Filgashen, which we just talked about, are level 60. So the next instance is called Scumfil, and it's about as fun as it sounds. So I digress. It's not actually that bad. There's a neat mechanic in that one as well, and we'll discuss that in a moment. So Reginald Sickleweed wants us to
Can I speak with you a moment?
Defeat whites in the northern Barrow Downs for calming the wake. Check. Defeat Barghists in the northern Barrow Downs. 12. Check. Okay, we'll see those. Digging in the dirt. Collect lore fragments around the barrows of the men of Cardlin, Teradan, Oron, and Ringor. So we're digging in the dirt. He gives us a pickaxe to dig with here. And the Dead Spire. I'll chat about the Dead Spire when we get there. That's worthy of a tale. So collect the stone fragments around the Dead Spire. So we've got those four. Bob here says the failed delivery. So we turn in here. You came here instead of seeking Barliman and the Watchers. Oh, this is a fine mess. Oh boy. Alright, so he was the guy who sent the note. And then he says the search for Lalia. Alright, then Bob's daughter Lalia. There's a lot of good stories in the Barrow Downs. It's kind of I'm gonna have to digress back and forth between that and Moria. So alright, so we gotta find his daughter, Lalia. She's in the Barrow Downs. And finally,
take a moment of your time.
Carriers of disease. We're killing crawlers, we're killing rats, we're killing whites, we're killing bargs, we're killing everything that isn't nailed down in the northern Barrow Downs. So off we go, and more Tales of Moria to come. So, so the next instance, as I said, is Scumfil, and it's a unique instance. You can only do a part of Scumfil at a time. You can't do the whole thing in one shebang. You either have to go... So when you go into the instance, if you go right, there's a war going on in Scumfil, and it's a war basically started by the dirty beasts. It's a carrion pit is what Scumfil is. It's where the orcs dump all their filth and the dead bodies and everything. They just send it down to Scumfil, and you've got a war. And Cats and Combats, welcome to the stream. I actually watched a bit of your stream. You're playing with your lore master in the Great Barrow, I believe, and that was an interesting stream. So welcome to the stream, Cats and Combats, and your raiding party. Thanks for joining us. It's truly appreciated. What are we doing? We're talking about Moria. We're talking about right now. We're on Scumfill. Welcome to the chat, you guys. And if you kind of want to hear a tale, well, let me tell you a tale. And if you'd like to hear this tale, and if you like what you hear, and you feel like following the stream for more of these stories, because that's what we do here, is we just play along with this Hobbit Burglar and tell stories and reminisce about days past and the future. Dead bodies, yes. So we're talking about Scumfill and the dead that are in there, and the war that's going on between the Gredbig, which are kind of bugs that live in Moria. They're on one side, and then the Kurgrim are on the other side. So, and there's a boss for each one. There's a giant bug boss, and then there's a giant Kurgrim boss. And if you go left, the mechanic is if you go left, you fight the Kurgrims, and then the bugs all retreat. And then you got to leave, and then you got to come back, and then you got to go to the right, and then you fight the bugs, and the Kurgrims all retreat. So you do one part, and then you do the other, and then each half gives you a key, much like the Great Barrows. You got to do the maze, and then you've got to do Thadur, and then Thadur is the maze, and then you got to do the twins, I think. Or no, the maze is the twins, and Thadur is on his own. Yes, that's it. And then you get the key. So once you get the key, you go into the middle, and there's a giant spider boss, and a lot of spiders. So hint, hint, if you want to get your spider deed done in Moria, or if you're playing as a hobbit and you've still got hobbits to spiders to take care of for your hobbit deed, then yes, Cats and Combats. I've been playing for quite some time. I've taken breaks here and then, but this is kind of the time period of the game. Incidentally, just letting you guys know, I'm playing on Treebeard Legendary server, so the cap here is still 50, and the reason we're talking Moria is because we're really excited. We're excited about Moria. We can't wait for the release. It releases next Wednesday, January 5th, so you can bet that the doors of Durin are going to be crowded with a lot of dwarves and men and hobbits and elves and high elves and Bjornings and whatever race of brawler you want to play on. So anyway, the spiders in Scumfill, that's a good place to get the deed done there. So now Scumfill used to drop, I believe, the gloves part of the Moria set. And once again, I'm kind of talking in retrospect here because they changed the mechanic for the armor pieces dropping. So if it kind of sounds like, what are you talking about gloves dropping? I don't remember that. They changed the mechanic, and I'll kind of get into that once I've done the last instance. So without any further ado, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about the 16th Hall. So the 16th Hall is an instance in, I believe it's in the first hall. That's where the actual instance entrance used to be located. Oh no, it's in the Redhorn Lodes, actually. I think in the northern Redhorn Lodes. I'm not sure where exactly it is. Anyway, you can find it on the instance finder now, so a little bit of a different thing. But the 16th Hall used to be known as just the longest of the Moria instances. It's kind of a trek through the 16th Hall, and a couple of boss fights along the way. The first boss is pretty cool. He actually has a cold, coughs all over the place, coughs a bunch of little poisonous areas on the floor that you need to stay out of, and good voice acting from them too. It's pretty neat. So after you beat him, you continue on, and it's you meet the second boss, and the second boss is in a room, and he's surrounded by everybody's kind of like falling ill to a plague in the 16th Hall. I think that's the beginning of the story of the orcs that have the Globsnaga, where they first have you get these orcs that are infected by this kind of disease that's going around in Moria. And the 16th hall is where I believe the origin of that disease is, because there's a couple of places there where there's actual pits of it. The final boss is another coffer, and he has a mechanic to him as well. You need to stay out of the puddles, and if you want to do the challenge, you actually have to. He's surrounded by little barrel crawlers, or no, it's Dreadbig. It's Dreadbig. So it's the little bugs. And so I know to get the challenge, you used to have to run around the room, and one person would kite, usually the healer, like the captain or someone who can spam self-heals. And everybody else would just concentrate on the boss, no AoE, while you kite these Dreadbig around, like the Pied Piper. You have all these little bugs following you. And eventually, the rest of the group takes down the boss, and the fellow who's kiting can kind of take a break and run that off. So another instance that has pretty neat mechanics. A lot of creativity went into Moria in those instances way back then. So that was it was a very fun zone, lots of fun. And that'll take us into... I'm not going to do too much in terms of, I like talking about the bosses and whatever, but I'm not really going to do too much of this spoiler alerts, because folks can just kind of experience it for themselves. But, and the final of the 6 Moria instances has to be tied probably for my favorite. It would be the Dark Delvings instance. And... that's a neat one. It's quick, surprisingly. You can get through that instance with a good group in about 15-20 minutes. And the last boss, though, is very cool. So his name is Gurband, and he is just a giant kind of deformed cross between a troll and an Uruk, I believe. Well, I believe he's a nameless, so he might actually even have more than one head. It's been a while since I've seen him, so I'm pretty excited to meet him again. Anyway, Gurband is one boss that I've seen groups go in there, and I've seen them wipe and wipe and wipe and wipe. Okay, we just hit level 20. Woohoo! Are we undying? We are undying! Oh! You know what? I never even talked about that, but there's a change there. But yeah, so let me finish the Dark Delvings and the Gurband story, and then I'll tell you my little secret here. There's a secret forthcoming. So Lalia, time to escort Lalia. For all of you viewers who joined us from the raid, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. If you kind of like what you're hearing, go ahead and follow. But really appreciate you spending your Thursday evening with us here, or morning, wherever you are, or afternoon. So anyway, the Gurband fight. So the Gurband will reflect. Every once in a while, he'll get a debuff on him where he reflects. So a lot of the times, the groups that I go in are doing so well. They're like, oh, we're really getting this guy down. This guy's a joke. People say this is hard. And then all of a sudden, the reflect comes on, and you're playing in a pickup group where no one talks. They just kind of know what they're doing. And then the whole group wipes. All of a sudden, everybody's dead. And it's like, well, what happened? How come the healer didn't heal anybody? And it's all because the massive amounts of DPS that you can generate it will destroy your raid. So, or your fellowship. So people just kill themselves in that fight. So it's really important that someone in the raid is paying attention and looking for that... thank you. About to lurk while we eat some dinner. Lurk on, Cats and Combats. Lurk on. By the way, I would like to say that I like your hat. I saw it earlier, if you're lurking. And also, I have 2 cats, and they are monsters. And one of these streams, I will bring them in here. One is 22 pounds. His name is Diesel. And the other one is about 15 pounds, and his name is Riley. So, plugging the cats. So we got Riley and Diesel here, and yeah. Yeah, and one loves boxes, that's for sure. So, okay, so getting back to the Dark Delvings, a nice quick instance. There's 3 bosses. They all have pretty cool mechanics. Oh, Mr. Bosa Biscuit. Oh, well, we'll see. I shall bring him on in the stream at one point. All I need to do is bring food in here, and we'll have another viewer. So, and the other cat will come too. Yeah, the other cat's he's a funny guy. He's got quite the personality. But So, yeah, so Dark Delvings, again, one of my favorite instances. Nice quick run. The enemies are cool. The combats are neat. There are tendrils of goop hanging from the ceiling, and should you fall into those tendrils, you'll get stuck, and it's up to you to struggle, and it's up to your group to kind of try to stay alive if you're the healer while you struggle. So, so some pretty neat stuff there. Okay, so that takes us... We're done talking about the 6-man, so... If you've been following along, the tendrils of goop, yes. Later on, you actually have to fight those tendrils, I think. Like, you get stuck on purpose. Oh, and when you get stuck, little gummy worms, I believe, they look like gummy worms, fall from the ceiling. And, can you solo this game? You can solo pretty much every time, you can solo the landscape, but as far as the instances go, well, that's kind of a tricky question. If you're doing them on level, it can be difficult. But depending on the class, like Wardens used to be notorious for being able to basically solo anything. Captains as well. Captains are a good solo class. You can get a lot done on a captain because you can put a mark on enemies that actually allows you to heal while you're DPSing. And, I mean, so it's just a matter of you healing whatever your kind of damage that you're doing. And if you're on level, the instances themselves, the Moria instances, are not divided into tiers. So there's no tier 1 and no tier 2. It's just basically the raw instance. So it's a little bit of a face roll with a group of 6. A lot of people like to just go in with 2 or 3 and get it done. So, if you can't find a group of 6, and a lot of those are quite possible. So I'd like to actually say thank you for chatting, Mr. Bosa Biscuit, fellow cat person. And thank you also for chatting Belated Odyssey. Welcome to the stream. Hope you guys are enjoying the trek through the Barrow Downs and the chat about Moria. That's what we're kind of talking tonight because we're excited. It's coming to the Legendary servers. We've been at level 50 cap for a while, and the cap's just about to raise to 60 next Wednesday. So we're just talking about that. So now we're into the raids. Okay, so what kind of raids are there in Moria? Well, I'm strictly talking about the Moria releases, so we'll get into the Lothlorien stuff in a little while, but they're also part of this release, so you actually get an extra raid and some extra instances. So before I get going though, there's one mechanic that I was talking about. I was telling you and telling the viewers at the beginning of the stream, when we first started talking about Moria, that you used to do these instances for a reason. Yeah, they're fun, but they also had a pragmatic use, not just you know, like let's do it just for giggles on a Thursday night. You used to get armor pieces from them, and you would be required to use that armor because it had Radiance on it. Radiance used to be a stat in Lord of the Rings Online. I believe it's a stat again, but only when you reach Mordor, which is years away on this server. Anyway, so Radiance used to combat gloom, and the Watcher in the water used to generate a lot of gloom. So you needed Radiance pieces to be able to actually get into that raid to raid the Watcher in the water, which was the main 12-person endgame raid when Moria first came out. So we'll talk about the Watcher in the water in just a second, but they made a change. So now, because of the fact that people were just like, you know, you only got one pair of boots and one pair of gloves per run. So in order to get all 6 people that you were in the fellowship with, you'd have to run each instance 6 times. You know, and have everybody kind of just like roll on loot. And with the instances taking about maybe half an hour each, you're talking like 3 hours to get the whole group their gear, right? Now, for an MMO player, that may not sound like a whole lot, and Lalia is rescued. Way to go. But it's still a lot of time. So what they did is there's no more armor pieces dropping from the instance. Okay. There also isn't any more Radiance, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But now what happens is every time you do an instance, you get a certain amount of coins. They're called Moria coins, Moria tokens, and you can trade them for the Moria armor pieces. So basically, everybody in the raid used to get coins. I have to dig at this barrow, so excuse me while I dig. All right, so that's one fragment. Yeah, so you used to get these coins, and well, that's what you get now. You get coins for it. So you can run any instance once, and you usually average between 7 coins and 7 coins and 10 coins, depending on if you do the challenge and how you kind of approach it. But if for the most part, you know, it's kind of like if you run all the Moria instances once, you have about 50 coins, and that's quite a bit. That'll get you like at least 2 or 3 armor pieces out of the 4. The armor pieces that are part of the Watcher in the Water raid, the Watcher in the Water will drop your last 2 pieces for your sets. They still fall, so they still fall in the Watcher raid. You actually get what's called a Platinum Coin of Spirit, and you trade that in at your class trainer for the specific armor piece that you want, either the helm or the shoulders. So yeah, but so back in the day though, you needed to actually get those 4, the 4 main pieces of your set plus 2 more, and the 2 more, I believe the helmet came from the 16th hull, and the shoulders came from Dark Delvings, I think. They weren't part of your set, they had radiance on them, so you had to kind of use them until you actually got your official helmet and shoulders from the Watcher, if you were lucky enough to be one of the 12 to win one of 2 coins that used to drop. So that was another issue. So another thing too is that when the Watcher first came out, the Watcher was a full-blown raid. It had locks, and you used to only be able to run it once or twice a week. So the raids used to reset Sunday night after midnight and Thursday or Wednesday night after midnight. So you'd have to basically go on a run with 12 other people, hopefully win a coin. If you didn't win one, you'd have to wait till Thursday, you know, and so on. So, all right, so we have to dig in the dirt here again. So now let's get into a little bit of the strategy of the Watcher. Not a whole lot of spoilers, just the raid is kind of well known enough now, and on the live servers it's now a daily raid, so a lot of people can just go in there. Before the revamp for the legendary weapons, it was a way to get 1 token of 6 or 4 to get your first age legendary weapon for your level 60 characters. So so the strategy is kind of well known, but the strategy is quite neat. So everybody has to kind of stay together, and then the raid will start. Someone will run out, and the Watcher will scream, and he'll pop up and he'll scream. Now the raid has to run all as a 1 unit, because the Watcher will target 1 person in the 12-man raid to basically scream at, and the stream will catch anybody who's along with it and do about like 13 to 15,000 damage in the scream. It used to one-shot people, so it was like, oh, you know, somebody didn't move quick enough with the scream, because if you move as an entire group, you can kind of outrun the scream as long as everybody moves at the same time and doesn't dawdle or split up. So the scream is usually a few steps behind the rest of the group. Anyway, that leads you to step 2, and then there's tentacles that come out from the water. You have to take down the left, you have to take down the right, and then a whole series of tentacles just bursts from the water and tries to wrap up. There's 1 tentacle per member of the raid, so you could have 12 tentacles come out at the same time. And we gotta dig at this barrow. Once again, the gameplay tonight is kind of falling a little bit by the wayside, because it's more of an exciting discussion of the Watcher and mechanics and just Moria in general. What a great zone. So thank you for joining, though. I really appreciate the new follows and the new people in the chat. If you have any questions, I should actually add this. If there are any questions that or anything that you want to know more about, you can actually email me at steelydad2021@gmail.com. I'm happy to respond as quickly as I can. If you like the stream, of course, just follow. I'd appreciate your follow. And you can also follow me on Twitter. Again, I'm a relatively new streamer, so don't have many followers right now, but it's at SteelyDad 2021 is my Twitter handle. So normally Rose Garden kind of puts it up there, so I'm sure she will at some point. So okay, so back to the Watcher. So the tentacles came up, one per raider, and once that's done, then the head pops up. So here's a now and then comparison. So back then, what used to happen when the head of the Watcher came up, and you've seen the head in the movies with the Watcher comes out and dangles Frodo over the maw with a bunch of like tooth. It's an alien looking thing with teeth. It's pretty grotesque. It's a giant squid, but with grotesque teeth. So anyway, so the head pops out, and then the Guardian or the Warden or whoever's tanking it used to go to the other side of the Watcher and turn that head around so it wouldn't be facing the rest of the raid, because every once in a while the Watcher would continue to scream and jump and splash, and then if it was facing the rest of the raid, you'd get Wipe City. Okay, it'd be a pretty quick wipe. So the Guardian used to do that, and then the healer used to just kind of worry about keeping the Guardian up, and then you DPS a tentacle, and then another tentacle, and then the head, and you'd take it down in chunks, and then the tentacles would respawn again, rinse and repeat, left tentacle, right tentacle, head. So that's the way the fight used to go down until the head finally died, and you'd finish the raid. So in the advent of the legendary servers, and I think just on the regular servers, maybe this strategy came, all of a sudden the Watcher has now become a ranged tank raid boss. So instead of swimming out to the Watcher's location during the raid, everybody stays on the shore. And normally you'll have the Guardian or the Warden, whoever's doing the tanking, or a Captain or a Champ. They will go to one side, and the rest of the raid goes to the other side, and they will keep the head focused on them, while the rest of the raid pews from the side. If you're a melee character, it's kind of a venture out there at your own risk, because you can take a lot of damage and die. As a Burglar, it's a good thing to just put your pride aside for your DPS and debuff for that raid, especially now the way it is. But same with Champs, you can't really do much as a Champ unless you're tanking. You just fire the bow, maybe get close enough to do a couple of moves and then run away. But in the end, you'd have that chance, that 2 in 12 chance, 1 in 6 chance of getting one of the 2 platinum coins to drop. So, and the Watcher used to have some really cool loot, so that was another reason to venture out there. So that was one raid. The second Moria raid is called Filicul, and the Watcher in the water, I refer to it as the Watcher raid. The actual name for the raid is called the Vile Maw, and I believe that's how it's known in the instance finder. So, but that's a lot of fun. That's a really fun raid. Filicul is cool. Filicul is a giant turtle. You encounter them a little bit earlier in the game. There's some in Bree-land that you can do for kind of a fun quest. There's some in Ivendim where you actually and the boss in Ivendim at the end of one of the instances is also a giant turtle. So the turtle graphic has been used before. So the mechanic with Filicul is it's a DPS race. So it's a fun instance. You need basically one tank and bring your DPS, bring a couple of healers just for coverage, and just try to DPS the thing as quick as you possibly can. So you just surround it, and the trick is why it's a race is the turtle has a progressive acid debuff. The acid surrounding this turtle that that he attacks you with. Oh, and this is the Wandering Shade. Okay. It does a little bit of damage at first, and then the damage just ramps as the raid goes on. So soon there's a damage over time on your tank of a couple thousand a second, or every 3 seconds there's a couple of thousand damage being done. So oh, I'm in the wrong spot. So So you really have to try to get there and focus your DPS. It's honestly a really fun raid. I can't remember the last time I perished in a turtle raid, especially with the advanced damage that we do now, with the classes revamped and the trait tree revamped. But back then, if you'd have a pickup group, there was no guarantees that you'd get that turtle down. I've seen pickup groups wipe on the turtle before, so... And once again, that's one of those things where after it kind of became fun, you'd be like, let's do a turtle with 12 rune keepers, let's do a turtle with 12 burglars, let's burgle the turtle, used to be a thing. So a lot of fun to be had there. So, and those were the Moria instances. So you had 7 6-person instances and 2 12-person raids. All right. So when Moria dropped, that's what we had to play with. Now, along with on these legendary servers, I should actually, for those of you who have just joined us, thank you for joining us. Hope you're enjoying the stream. For those who have been with us, I mentioned that I am playing on the Treebeard server. It's, Treebeard is a defeat whites near the place where the blood... Okay. So, Treebeard is a place where the level cap is still 50. We're expecting a level cap raised to 60 in the coming week on January 5th, and the Mines of Moria will be open. Now, we're not only getting Moria. No, we're actually getting Lothlorien as well, and we're getting all the Lothlorien instances, and there's some goodies. So we'll get into those in a second. First, I'd like to say, for those of you who are new to the stream, this stream normally just follows the adventures of Jubilost here. He's a Hobbit burglar, and we started in the Shire, then we moved into the Old Forest, and then into Bree-land, and now into the Barrow Downs, and we're just going to do some turns. So normally it's about reading the quests and traveling along. Tonight's a little bit different. We're talking about Moria. We're kind of, bringing up old memories, and I'm sharing some maybe some strategies, so a little bit of a different stream, but for the most part it's just a chill, laid back stream, and I'm really hoping that you guys are enjoying it. So I'm not really focusing on the quest is basically what that disclaimer is. Normally I do. So this is one of those things where I'm just going to look. I have to defeat whites over there. I have to search that barrow for a chest, and I have to search Dead Man's Perch for other people. So those are the 3 quests that I'm looking for right now. But back to Moria and Lothlorien. So Lothlorien debuted after Moria. I believe it was about 6 months after Moria, and we got new instances along with the area of Caris Galadon, which was the elf city that we'll get into in depth in a later stream, but. There's Ngaulor just driving by from the Better Biscuit Bureau. So, Lothlorien instances, we got 2 new 3-person instances. Those were called the Hall of Mirrors and the Water Wheels of Naladum. 2 very cool instances with really neat mechanics. So, those were a lot of fun. And then we got a 6-person instance called the Halls of Crafting. So that is actually in the Flaming Deep Swimmeroo, if you're still with us. Swimmeroo he's afraid to go into those mines, so they went too greedily and too far into the Flaming Deeps. So that instance took place down there. Now that was a 6-person, and then we got a full 12-person raid along with Lothlorien. So here's the ancient chest here. All right. So the 12-person raid was called Dar Nargabud, and it took place in the Dark Delvings. It was actually deep in the halls, right near the entrance to the Dark Delvings instance. Foundations of Stone. That is the area of the Moria map where the Dark Delvings are. It's called Foundations of Stone. So the Dark Delvings instance is there. And so is Scumfill. Scumfill instance was there as well. So, I've got a lot of debuffs on here. Better pay attention for just a second here while I get out of trouble. Okay. So, and that was a masterpiece of a raid. I felt that was the that and the Rift of Nerz-Gashu were arguably the two greatest raids that Lotro has ever produced. I do have a soft spot for the Tower of Orthanc. I really enjoyed that as part of the upcoming Isengard expansion in Dunland. But I really enjoyed Dar Nargothrond. I thought that was a really great raid. Good bosses, cool mechanics. So in Dar Nargothrond, I believe you had five bosses or six. I think it was 5. You had the headless 3. I say that because you collect the heads from all 3, and then you actually can get a trophy from them. And then you had the blind one, which was a great fight. The blind one is one of the best fights in this entire game. I really enjoy that. I think it's my second favorite fight next to Saruman at the top of the tower. So, and then you also had the Mistress, who's disgusting. The giant thing. I won't. If you want to know, if you want to Google, go ahead and Google Lotro the Mistress and just have a look at that bod. What a horrifying raid boss. But the mechanic around her too is pretty interesting. You need crowd control, but not to crowd control. Crowd control was the only methods of attack that actually did damage to the Mistress's servants. So. Let's see here. So I'm going to turn this in real quick. Treasures of Carlin. All right.
Hello,
Collecting history. This is a Great Barrow quest. Takes us into the Great Barrows instance, which we're not going to do tonight, but hopefully we can get into one at some point on this character. So you'd start off with the Headless 3, and in all honesty, I remember a couple of them. One of them had I think a mechanic where you... I just recently completed Moria for the... Hey, and welcome to the stream, Shivani's Epitome. Forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. I recently completed Moria for the first time, and I just did all those dungeons in one raid. That's fantastic. It's like hands-on experience, and I hope you actually really enjoyed them, because I certainly share in that excitement and that enjoyment. So, welcome to the stream, and thanks for the chat. Oh, well, I try. If you're a Tolkien lover, you have to kind of have a love of language, I think, in order to really understand you. Half the fun is just pronouncing these names, like for years I said Eregion, the area just outside of Moria. I used to pronounce it Eregion, because it's basically an E in front of region. And no one, in proper English says, "Oh, we're visiting that region." It's actually region. So, but in Tolkien's language, the G is always a hard G. It's never a J. It's always a G. So, that's kind of one thing. So, anyway, that part aside, I'm really happy that you did those dungeons, and I hope you had a good time. So, anyway, doing the trio of bosses. My favorite one, I think, and the one that frustrates a lot of people, is there's a boss that I call Red Light, Green Light. And the boss is actually one of these, it's similar to the Gurband, kind of a creepy-looking cross between a troll and an orc, and has like an Etten, for those of you who play fantasy RPGs, kind of like that. I think it has like multiple heads, but anyway, what happens in this raid is... you're DPSing it, and it's just a DPS at first, and then all of a sudden a shield will come up. And when the shield comes up, someone in the raid has to call out DPS off. And because if you keep DPSing it, when the shield goes up, all of the health that you should be taking off all gets restored to him. So considering the massive amount of DPS that you can generate at level 60, relative to the raid boss morale, it's quite the raid. Like it's quite the amount of damage. So you can heal them from basically half health right back up to full if you're not careful. And you have to put away your bleeds. That's another thing I tell my group when we first go in, is put away those bleeds. And thank you so much for your follow, Shivani's Epitome. I really appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the chat, and that you join us again. So we tell these people who have bleeds, which is basically every class, burglars included, to just put the bleeds away. Just concentrate on strict DPS. And hunters don't use barbed arrow. Captains don't use there's a deep wound, I think it is, or some grave wound causes bleeds. Just put those skills away. Drag them off your bar, because if you don't, and you don't listen to your raid leader, you'll never get this boss down. So, very cool mechanic. We actually had one fellow in the raid. He was a hunter in the last kinship that I was that I was part of in Anor. And he was like Egon in the Ghostbusters, It's like, okay, all right, stop, we'll stop. And Egon just keeps blasting, and destroys the hotel in the original Ghostbusters movie. This guy just would not stop. He's just pew, 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 pew. And the health of the thing was just going. So we had to basically, break down the mechanic for him, like, bit by bit. And eventually he caught on, and it was a lot of fun. So good laughing matter. But, the blind one is also, as I was saying, was a really good fight, and he's kind of in the middle of like the spider web, and the mechanic of the raid is everybody has to kind of spread out. You can't be too close to each other because he is blind, but he can kind of sense areas, and with the exception of the tank, and then there's an off tank that has to go out there because he eventually just will drop complete aggro on the tank, and the off tank has to pick him up at that point, just until the regular tank can shake off, I guess, the threat build. Anyway, everybody just kind of fans out in the hands of a clock. So, I'm at 1 o'clock, the lore master's at 3 o'clock, etc. And you're just kind of out there, and eventually you can come in and do some DPS as the raid continues. But there are mobs that need to be debuffed and crowd controlled, and it's a fight with a lot of moving parts, but it's really, really fun. And finally, you've got the Mistress. And the Mistress is just a big bag of goop. You know what? I didn't even finish that thing. I'm getting turned around here. So the Mistress fight is interesting in that she has these orcs. They're Globsnaga, who will jump on your character's back. They'll actually like jump on there and render your character like immobile. Kind of, they just stand there dazed. So they'll do it to 3 random people. So it's up to the rest of the fellowship, or the raid, to free those people as quickly as possible, and then get back on the Mistress. Now, during the fight, the Mistress has these like little Limphraen, I think that the little balls of light, but they're actually balls of, I don't know if you want to call them glowing disease. I'm not really sure, but anyway, they're around, and they will do a lot of reflect damage if you hit them by accident with AoEs, or and they'll come out and they'll just straight out attack you. But you have to crowd control them to kill them. If you use a burglar riddle, for example, that's one way to crowd control them, and then they become vulnerable to attack. If you're just trying to hit them without crowd control, they don't take any damage. So burglars traded yellow, where you can quickly cool down your riddle. Lore masters traded yellow are extremely valuable there too, as well as minstrels and their fear. Any method of crowd control. Hunters with their barbed arrow, I think, works on it. So there are a lot of methods to crowd control, but they are very important in that fight. It's not just your typical night at the parlor with the Mistress, just waiting for her to kind of tank and spank it. There's a lot more to do with it. So there you have Dar Nargabud. So that was the raid. I kind of went to the raid, and then I'm talking backwards now. So let's talk about Halls of Crafting. Halls of Crafting is a good instance. It's a long instance. You go through several of the halls of crafting, which have been taken over by goblins and orcs, and with Uruk leaders. So you travel down the halls. There are a couple of quests to do in there, but it's mostly just groups of enemies. You have to, as a tank, you grab them, you turn them around so they're not facing your group. You DPS them down. You move on. The first boss, I'm not sure if this is the first boss. I think it is. The first boss has a cool mechanic in that there's 4 corners of the room. There's like a red corner, Swimmeroo, your phone died. I'm on the computer now. What did you miss? Well, you missed a raid. You missed quite a bit of a discussion about Moria instances, but it's okay. We'll take you through them when we next play together. There's I'm just talking about the instances that come with the Lothlorien expansion right now. So welcome back to the stream. So anyway, that boss has 4 colors, and there's a red color, yellow color, green color, and blue color. And depending on which square that you fight that boss in, I don't even know where I'm going here. I think I'm lost. Face it, Mr. Frodo, we're lost. Depending on where you fight the boss, he gets a buff from each one of those colors. Oh, that's why. I'm here for no reason. There's nothing for me to turn in here. It's the Wandering Shade and then Dead Man's Perch. Okay. Getting back to that. So, depending on where you fight the boss, he gets a buff. And normally, when my old group went in there quite often with one of my current kin mates, Threndanir, and group, we used to always fight him on whatever the furthest color was. I think it was red, because then it was just, I think he just did a little extra damage, but he didn't mess with any of your stats or tactical damage or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to get back in there and remember what those mechanics are, because it's been some time since I visited the Halls of Crafting. So now, you know what? It's been so long, I don't even remember what the other bosses are. Anyway, so maybe we'll cover that. I remember the Hall of Mirrors, though. So let's go to that one. That is a 3-person instance. It takes place up in Zirak Zigul, the mountaintop where Gandalf fought the Balrog and smote his enemy upon the rocks in his ruin, and he broke the towers when he in his ruin. That sort of quote there. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm looking for this shade. So anyway, the Hall of Mirrors. An outstanding 3-person instance. So it's a lot of fun. The only kind of hellacious part of it is you start off at the top and you kind of work your way down. The dwarves have arranged these mirrors so that they provide light to the very lowest of the halls, and you can see all these mirrors kind of part of the instances is turning them so that they reflect the light that's coming in from the outside into another mirror, into another mirror, into another mirror that's pointed down, and then it gets shown down to the next level. So very cool mechanics there. So you work your way down, and eventually you get to a big platform in the middle, series of platforms around the outside, and each one has a mirror. And you've got one source of light, and it's coming down, and you've got to arrange those mirrors so that they actually shine. I believe there's 2 on the top, 2 on the right, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the left, I think. So there's 8 mirrors total. And you really have to either think logically or know the pattern. You can actually find the pattern online. And then the light will stream down, hit all the mirrors, and melt the spider web that's covering the final big mirror on the bottom that lights the whole place up and is where the boss is. So the boss is a Merivale, which is kind of like a harpy creature. And she has a boatload of ads. They're all kind of gathered around the outside of the room. They're all a bunch of harpies, and every once in a while she'll become untargetable, and the harpies swarm. I believe there's 16 of them. And so the harpies will swarm. Normally what happens then is you basically just try to endure. You try to heal through it, because the challenge mode is to defeat her with at least one harpy from each group of 4 still alive. Yeah, it certainly is, and it's a lot of pressure on your healer. Now, you can kill like 2 or 3 of the harpies from each group, so each time this happens, fewer harpies come out to beat on the group. But you run the risk of accidentally, with an AoE or a bleed, killing all the harpies from one group, so you lose challenge mode. So that's a neat thing there. So, all right, so we just talked to the Shade. He's sending us up to defeat the Bone Man. All right, that's an old classic Lotro quest here. For those of you who are watching the Barrow Downs and really wishing, why doesn't he just kind of focus on what he's doing? I really would. It might be on a different character that we get to, discussions on the Barrow Downs, but tonight we're talking Moria. So really happy you're all joining us. if you're getting a kick out of the stream, if you enjoy these tales, then it's kind of that's all we do here, all day, all night here, in this stream. So so please hit the follow button. I would really appreciate it, and join us again. You know, it's a lot of fun. It's just a casual kind of play and talk. So with a little history thrown in. So getting back to the final instance. So we've done the Hall of Mirrors. The final instance that I want to talk to you about is are the water wheels of Naladoom. So the water wheels are in the Naladoom area. It's I'm not sure where the waterworks, I believe, is what we used to call the area. It's right at the bottom. It's an entire area that's flooded. There's a lot of statues flooded, but basically it was the source of water for the forges, you know, and for the dwarves who lived in Moria, it was their main water source. So it's in the same area actually as the turtle. I think those two are very close together. So so the water wheels is another 3-person instance, and surprise, surprise, it's got a neat mechanic. And so if you've ever played a tabletop role-playing game, such as D&D or Pathfinder, one of the things that you learn very quickly is that your GM, your game master, doesn't like it when you split the party. Okay? Don't send 2 characters off to do one thing. Don't send 2 characters off to do another. Keep the party together, just for cohesion and for ease of GMing. Well, not so in the water wheels. You have to split the party. So at one point in time, there are gears that need to be thrown, and the gears will raise and lower certain gates. And there are actually spots where you have to leave a character at the wheel and turn the wheel, and then 2 other people go through the gate while it's open, drop down, and then the person who turned the wheel has to kind of wait in an area, and then those people work their way around, defeat a few monsters, and then get to another lever, which allows that person to rejoin the party. So you do actually have to split the party in a number of places in that instance, and it's a bit of a puzzle. For those who like puzzles, they will enjoy that instance, and it's a good instance that you can go to with a couple buddies and just, you know, like, oh, let's take this down tonight sort of thing. So a lot of fun. Bosses, I think there's a lizard. There's a lizard, Harry. In the basement, there's a lizard boss at the bottom. Then I think there is another mini boss. But the final bosses in that instance are evil. They're called Carelugs, CAE, There may be another G in there. So there's a whole bunch of them in one room, and basically they're sentient. I want to call them demons. Like they're these rocky things, and they kind of look like a boulder, and then they come to life, kind of like Pokemon's Golem, little round balls of rock, and so the trick with them is that they are pretty smart. You can crowd control them, but then you actually have to watch out, because they can actually go to each other and break your crowd control. Like they can kind of slap each other out of mezzes and break them. So you're best to just kind of try to DPS one down really quickly and then move on to the next. So, scary stuff, and sentient beasts. They actually are, and it was at that point in time, it was the first time anyone had encountered them. So we got to that instance, and it's like, what are these things? And they sound like rocks grating together, like I really can't describe it, but if you can find a video of the water wheels of Naladoom, when they get to the room, you'll know it, because it's, especially if they have the noise on it, it's really something. And the boss of that instance is actually a giant one. He's a giant Carelug. He's taken over the old dwarf water wheels of Naladoom, which is basically where all the wheels were that controlled the water flow in Moria. So that's kind of the story that you're... Oh, we just completed another deed. I'm just tracking treasure. I'm using all kinds of skills here. I need to reorganize my skill bar. They do sound terrifying, and they are. They are really bizarre beasties. So anyway, the Kerlug at the end is gigantic, and the final room in that is terrifying in itself, because hanging from the ceiling suspended are these gigantic, I don't know any other word, but it's like they're shaped like punching bags, but they're made of like concrete, and they're weights, and they're on chains, and they slam down, and it's not random, they're in set positions, but when they slam down, if you're underneath them, you take damage and you get stunned, of course. They're also the only thing that can stun this creature so that you can actually DPS it. So what you have to do is you have to get a lever and wait until the Kerlugs, I believe that's the mechanic, I'm not sure if I'm remembering this properly, but lead him to an area where the weight will drop on him, throw the switch, the weight drops, the Kerlug, the Kerog, I believe that's the name of the leader, gets stunned, and then you can DPS him. So, and that's how you win that. So, the room itself is just something, and if you're playing with sound on, just the sound of all of the weights just slamming on the ground it's truly terrifying. So
I'm sorry. Did you
not for the
something?
faint of heart. So
I'm sorry to trouble you, but will you help me?
so now we have to find Malin. So basically what I've just done is I've given you tonight just a little rundown of Moria. Kind of what to expect as far as instances go. I gave you just a base idea. There is a if you search Google or search YouTube for Nerd of the Rings, and you're interested in more of the actual legends of Middle-earth, and there's an outstanding video. I'll actually see. Just excuse the stream. I'm not sure if it's going to blank out my stream. I don't think it will. But I'm going to find this video, and I'm going to link it because it was superb. Let me see where I can find it. Or did I actually maybe put it in a browser? Let me see here. Oh, there we go. Okay, good stuff.
This video is brought to you by Lord of Map.
Okay, sorry about that. I am not, let's see here, I'm not a pro, but I'm getting there. So I'm going to link this video here, and that's really worth a watch. It kind of tells you like the history of Moria with the dwarves, how the Balrog got awoken, the cool facts about the doors of Moria, and you know, the whole riddle with Gandalf, you know, speak friend and enter, and how he kind of messed up the translation a little bit. So very cool stuff there. Again, I'm playing on the Treebeard server, and this server right now has a level cap of 50. So Moria is dropping here for the first time next week. A lot of talk in World Chat, a lot of talk in my kin. Everybody's really excited, including myself. So just thought tonight's stream would be a really cool kind of, you know, preview of Moria. So in the days coming, I'm sure you'll hear me reference it more often as I continue the stream and our adventures with our Hobbit Burglar here. But really hope that tonight may have been instructional, eye-opening, and enjoyable, because if you can hear the passion in my voice, I'm very passionate about Moria. It's one of my favorite expansion zones. So my viewers, thank you for sticking with me through this stream. This has been a great stream. Had a lot of viewers. Thank you very much for the raid. And hope you guys had a good time checking this one out. I'm gonna stop it here. And if you like what you see, please follow. I can certainly use the follows, and I hope you enjoy the stories enough to follow along. And if you want to check out my YouTube channel, I've got previous streams on there. The link is still in the chat. You can actually see it up there. And you can follow me on Twitter, SteelyDad2021. Another way to check it out. So I have a couple of streams that are disappearing from Twitch in the next couple of days, but they are on YouTube, and they're all numerical, Volume 1, Chapter, whatever. So without any further ado, I hate to leave you all, but But it's about that time. I have to do a little bit of housework before my significant other comes home. So until our next meeting, and thank you for joining. I really appreciate your views and your follows. Cheers and good night.